There's a little book that was written over 100 years ago. It's less than 50 pages. It takes less than an hour to read. It's been read by millions of people. It's called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And one of the most crucial statements in that book is that men do not attract what they want, but what they are. So that's true of all people. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. That same idea is written in a more recent book called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And what they say in that book is that you can know your commitment based on the results you're now getting. So commitment isn't what you want, commitment is what you are currently getting, the results you're getting. So whatever you weigh right now, like in terms of your health, your weight, that's what you're committed to. However much money you're currently making, that's what you're committed to. If you were going to commit to something different, then you would get different results. So who you are is basically generating the results you're getting. And if you want to change your results, you have to change who you are, not merely what you do, because what you do is who you are. Obviously, there's a great quote from Aristotle. He said, "You are what you repeatedly do." And so in order to actually change your results and change your life, you have to actually change yourself. Be the change you want to see in the world, but also be the change you want to see in your world. You've got to be, then do, then have. You got to be who you want to be and do what they would do. Do what your future self would do, not what current you would do. And then you will immediately generate. So committing is how you become someone different. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 levels or the 4 core aspects of being, because whoever you're being is going to determine what you do and what you have and basically who you are. And so you have to start by changing who you are, who you're being, because you get in life what you are. So the first part of being is seeing. It's whatever you see. Psychologists talk about selective attention. So selective attention means we all see the world through our own perceptual lens. Stephen R. Covey said, "We don't see the world as it is, but as we are, or as we've been conditioned to see it." So we don't see the outside world. You never actually see the outside world. You only see yourself. Whatever you see out in the world, whatever you're paying attention to, even scrolling through your news feeds, you only see yourself. I love the quote from Bruce Lee. He said, "All knowledge is self-knowledge." And so basically whatever you're seeing is just yourself. And whatever you're paying attention to is yourself. You're paying attention to what matters to you. William James, the famous Harvard psychologist, said that there are millions of things going on outside of you, but you almost notice none of them. Actually, in psychology, they call that inattentional blindness. There's stuff all around you. Think about even like, for example, Bitcoin. Just as one example, you heard of Bitcoin maybe 5 or so years ago, but you paid no attention to it. Basically, back to William James, he said, your life is what you pay attention to. Your experience is what you attend to. What you focus on expands. And so the first part of being is seeing. And obviously you can train yourself to see certain things. You know, if you start to want something, you'll start to see it more and more. You have to first become aware of it. It has to be in your context, but you become aware of it, then you start seeing more and more of it. You start engaging with it. And so that takes me to the second aspect of being, which is how you react to something. There's another quote. It's similar. It's by Neville Goddard. He basically said, you never actually see the outside world. You only see your reaction to it. You see your reactions to the world. So for example, if your coworker is bothering you, you're not actually seeing your coworker. You're only seeing your reaction to the coworker. You're only seeing your reaction to the situation. This is true of all things. It's true of politics. You know, if you think about, any political figure or any leader, you don't actually see them, you see your reaction to them. That's true of a movie. 2 people could watch the same movie and see something totally different and also react totally different to that. So you never actually see the world, you only see your reaction to it. And self-awareness comes from actually becoming an observer of your reactions. I actually recently did this with my son. I was taking him to his tennis lesson, and while we were on our way there, he accidentally spilled water on his shoe. He had his water bottle and he spilled it in his shoe, and he got upset. He's like, "Oh, no." And I just helped him become aware of his reaction. I said, "Okay, look, you spilled water on your shoe. That's great. But how do you want to react to that? Are you going to be upset? Are you going to be mad? Or are you just going to be neutral to it? Are you just going to be whatever?" You can start training yourself. There's actually a lot of books written by a guy named Dr. David Hawkins. He wrote a book called Power versus Force, Letting Go. He wrote Healing and Recovery. He wrote so many books, but he had developed over a long period of time what he called his map of consciousness, or his scale of emotions. And it basically shows where you're at in your emotional development as a person, or it shows how you're reacting to life. So he said that 80% of the population in the world are between what he calls anger and fear, meaning that they react to the world basically in an angry state or in a fear-based state. They're reacting to life in fear or in anger, and those types of reactions obviously don't create positive results. You can know that you're ready to change when you start reacting to life in a more courageous manner. You start approaching your goals. You start visualizing what you want, which changes what you see, but then you start reacting to the world by being proactive and bold towards your future self. Rather than reacting by retreating, you actually just pursue what you want. And that's how you start building confidence. And so you never actually see the real world, you only see a reaction to it. And you can start changing your reaction. Your future self would react very differently to your current life than you do now. They might react to your current triggers differently. They would react to your schedule differently. They would react to your whole life differently. And so part of making massive change is asking, how would my future self react to this situation? How would my future self handle this situation? Or what would my future self do? And that's how you can start to live better. There's a quote that says, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And within that space, you can make a choice. So if you, rather than being immediately reactive, you actually start to be proactive. You respond, not react. Then you're changing your reaction to the world. You're also changing how you spend your time. You're changing how you approach your calendar. You're changing how you approach your week. You're changing everything about that. So that takes me to the third level of being, which is doing. You are what you repeatedly do, as Aristotle said. Seth Godin, the famous writer, said that you can know what you are by what you do. So if you want to be a runner, then you should probably start doing some running. If you want to be a writer, you should probably start doing some writing. You are what you do, and doing actually reflects back to you who you are. In psychology, they call that self-signaling. Your behavior signals back to you the type of person you are, and you rate yourself based on what you do. So what you do determines who you are. And so one of the things you could obviously ask yourself is, what would my future self do? Or you could start doing and being your future self now. Change what you do and you will change who you are. You'll change who you're being. And so doing is a very powerful aspect of being. And you want to do what your future self would do. You could look at it this way. What does your future self say no to that you're still saying yes to in terms of schedule, behavior? There's a quote that basically says, you can't have a mighty change in your heart or in your mindset or in your identity without having more than a slight change in your schedule. So if you have a mighty change in your heart or in your mindset or in your identity, it's going to reflect in a massive change in your schedule, in your calendar, and how you do things. You can no longer do things the way your former self did it if you're going to become your future self. There's also something really powerful, though, that happens with doing. And that's when you start doing at the level of your future self, you start having a lot of peak experiences. You start creating subconscious enhancing experiences. It takes courage. That's why courage is the first step leading out of the negative zones of reacting. But once you start doing what your future self would do, you'll start generating different results, and that'll build your confidence. So the fourth level of being is knowing. Knowing is the deepest level of being. Back to Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a famous martial artist / actor back in like the I think it was 60s or 70s. He knew what he wanted to do. His wife even said he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to help the Westerners stop having so much racism towards Orientals. And so he knew what he wanted to do. He knew he wanted to be a famous actor. And he also knew that he was going to do it. He knew he was going to succeed. And so that's the two aspects of knowing, is knowing what you want. And even Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, said that once you know what you want, the whole world becomes your school, because then you can start using everything for the education of your goal. And so part one is knowing what you want. Part two is knowing that it's already yours. Neville Goddard said, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. And so not only do you need to know what you want or who you want to be or what you want to create, but you got to know that it's already yours. Florence Shin, the author, said, faith knows it has already received and acts accordingly. So it's both. Knowing and doing and knowing and being are all connected. Know what you want, know that it's already yours. Faith knows it has already received and acts accordingly. So you're not actually thinking at your goal or towards your goal. You're actually thinking from your goal. You're acting from your goal. You're being your future self now and doing what they would do. That's how you can know you've already received. Once you know you've already received or know that it's already yours, then you act from the place of it's already a foregone conclusion. So you act with more confidence rather than moving forward with such question and confusion. You know what you want, you know you're gonna go get it. And obviously it clarifies further and further as you build your confidence. There's another connecting dot here that connects knowing and doing. And this is a quote from Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey said, "Knowing without doing is to not really know." So if you know that eating healthy is good for you, but you don't do it, then you don't really know that eating healthy is good for you, because if you did know, you would do. And so all knowledge is self-knowledge, and knowing without doing is not knowing. And so if you know who you want to be, then you must do what your future self would do. And if you do, then you'll commit at a much higher level, and your commitment is a reflection of your results. And so if you commit at a much higher level, immediately your results will change. And so that takes us full circle back to the quote that I gave you right at the beginning from James Allen in As a Man Thinketh. He said, "Men do not attract what they want, but what they are, who they're being." So those are the 4 levels of being. What you see, and you can train your worldview. You can train what you see, how you react to the world around you. You can never actually see the world itself, but how you react to it. You're only seeing yourself. All knowledge is self-knowledge. Then what you do, and you can know who you are by what you do. You are what you repeatedly do. And then knowing what you want, deciding what you want, and knowing that it's already yours. Faith knows that it has already received and acts accordingly. Knowing without doing is to not know. So if you know what you want, you know it's yours, then you will do it at that level. And you do it from the level of your future self. You think from the goal, not to the goal. You act from the goal, not to the goal. You be your future self now. Be, then do, then have. My name is Dr. Benjamin Hardy. You can get my free 30-day Future Self course here. Please subscribe to this channel. Please give it a thumbs up. That would help the channel a lot. And down below, you can also learn more about this channel. Have an amazing day.